again, and welcome back to our mini-series on playing electric guitar in worship. If you haven't checked out the other previous video on some of the roles of the lead electric guitar, I'd love to encourage you to do that, as we're just building up from video to video. And so in this video, we're going to be looking at learning keys and scales. Now, if you're anything like me, learning theory is not my idea of a fun evening. But I've always found if I can pull through and just learn a little bit of theory, I often find that my playing ability goes up and skill level goes up massively, and I'm sure the same will go for you. So I'm going to start off with keys. What are keys? So I always think of keys as the song's musical home, and they can tell us what chords and what scales fit within that song. And importantly, scales are super important for lead electric guitar. They're really important for knowing what notes we can use to create a melody and parts we can play, and they can also tell us what chords and inversions we can play in this key. And so the first of these scales to learn is the pentatonic scale, which sounds a little something like this. So it can be played there, down right at the bottom of the fretboard. So, for example, this is the G major pentatonic, and you play all the open strings as well as the third fret on the G, B, on the E, B, and E strings, and the second fret on the A, D, and G strings. So I'll play that again for you slowly. It can also be played at a couple of other points on the fretboard. You can use the same shape at the 12th fret. If you just imagine the 12th fret is like the nut of your guitar, you can use the same shape up here, like this. I'm going to play it a bit quicker this time. And it can also be played just here, starting on the 7th fret of the A string. And it goes a little something like this. Now, once you've got the pentatonic scale down, you'll quickly find that a lot of worship riffs actually fit within the pentatonic scale. So, for example, the song Build My Life by Housefires uses notes exclusively from the pentatonic scale. And yeah, it's just the melody from the bridge, and it goes something like this. Also, the intro riff from the song Coming Alive again uses only notes from the pentatonic scale and goes a little something like this. And you'll quickly realise that actually some songs are pretty much all in the pentatonic scale, maybe with the addition of one note here or there. So again, the intro riff from the song Freedom. And also the intro riff, the riff from the song Glorious Day. And that's just a few examples of many, many songs that use the pentatonic scale as the basis for either melodies or riffs. So once you understand the pentatonic scale, working out and playing these riffs becomes a lot easier because you know where you can play and where you can't, and it quickly helps you progress in your playing. Then I would recommend learning a full major and minor scales, because these can add to the pentatonic scale. And it's important to know how the extra notes sound. So for example, the 7th note in the scale has a very particular sound. So for example, I'm going to play a little melody out of the song All Hail King Jesus. And first time round, I'm going to play it where I'm going to go straight to the 8th note and not play the 7th. But in the second time round, I'm going to play the 7th note and bend it up to the 8th. And it's a very subtle difference, but it makes a big difference in the way the riff feels. And now with the 7th note. And once you can learn how those extra notes they really add an extra level of emotion to the riffs. And I'd try and learn how each of those extra notes feels over different chords. And so you might be wondering, that's all good, Sam, but how do I actually practice scales? Unfortunately, bad news, you've at some point just got to sit down and learn them. I always learn them in terms of shapes or boxes on the fretboard because I'm a visual learner or something like that. Maybe ask a psychologist. But when I'm practicing them, I try and play them either with a click track or metronome to help me work on my timing as well, 2 birds and 1 stone. I also like to play with a loop that I create over a few chords or a backing track because I think that this is really helpful because while it maybe doesn't have the same quite specific rhythm focus of a click track, it's very important in terms of understanding how different notes fit over different chords and the way different notes feel or sound over different chords. And there's loads of backing tracks on YouTube or Spotify and stuff, or if you've got a loop pedal, that's a great way to go about it. So I would really recommend do give that a look. And for those of you who might be thinking, I've mastered kind of the pentatonic scale and some other scales, I'd really recommend, you might have heard the phrase break out of your boxes, but I'd recommend rather than breaking out of boxes, just make new ones. Find more places where you can link up those scales that you've already learned, and that will really help give you mobility across all the fretboards to use all the frets and utilize all the strings to get and serve the best we can. So, as a quick summary, we've looked at what keys and scales are and how to apply them, and that it's really important when practicing scales to do so alongside a click track or backing track to help us with our rhythm and how different notes sound. So thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video where we're going to be talking about improvisation.